Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're tuning in today. For this session, I want you to think of me not just as a host, but as your personal university mentor. We're going to unlock the doors to an ultimate global opportunity, what so many call the American dream, by completely demystifying the U.S. admissions and standardized testing process. Look, I totally get it. It can feel incredibly overwhelming at first glance, but I promise you, with the right roadmap, it is highly, highly achievable. Okay, let's dive right into this.
So, why actually choose the United States? Well, right off the bat, you're looking at a world-class education. We're talking about institutions that consistently top global rankings for academic excellence and open up massive future job opportunities. Plus, you get incredibly flexible study options. You don't even have to declare your major right away? That's a huge relief for a lot of people. But way beyond the classroom, the US just offers this vibrant, lively campus life. And hey, if you're worried about cultural adaptation, please don't be. These multicultural campuses are literally designed to support international students. You're going to find a welcoming community that makes adjusting to a new culture feel like a really exciting adventure, rather than some daunting challenge. Here is our roadmap for today. First, why study in the USA? Second, the exam landscape. Third, GRE versus GMAT. Fourth, inside the digital SAT. And finally, number 5, strategies for test success. Let's kick things off with Section 1, Why Study in the USA? Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I really want you to start framing these upcoming entrance exams not as massive, impossible hurdles, but as passport stamps. They are literally granting you access to incredible, life-changing global opportunities. The absolute first step in this journey is selecting the right university. Now, my biggest piece of mentor advice right here: look way beyond just the famous brand names and prioritize academic fit. Ask yourself, what specific programs actually align with your career goals? Furthermore, you really need to pay close attention to the support services they offer international students. You want to look for schools with robust orientation programs, dedicated international advisors, and really strong peer networks. These are the exact resources that'll ensure you thrive both academically and personally the minute you arrive. And if you need a little inspiration, this stat brilliantly illustrates the sheer potential waiting for you. 21 out of 91 US billion-dollar startup companies had a founder who first came to the US as an international student. I mean, think about Hamdi Ulukaya. He came from Turkey to study English in New York and eventually founded Chobani, which is an absolute giant in the dairy industry today. The entrepreneurial prospects and the overall business-friendly environment in the US are just unmatched, provided you have the drive and the vision. Beyond entrepreneurship, the U.S. offers some very specific pathways to gain real-world work experience. Enter CPT and OPT. That stands for Curricular Practical Training and Optional Practical Training. Look, these aren't just bureaucratic acronyms. They are quite literally your ticket to gaining hands-on, actually paid experience in your field of study. Participating in these practical training internships dramatically enhances your post-graduation career prospects. It gives you a massive competitive edge, whether you decide to stay in the U.S. or eventually return to your home country. Moving on to Section 2, the entrance exam landscape. All right, let's briefly decode this massive alphabet soup of tests. I know, just listening to all these letters can be exhausting, but stick with me. If you're aiming for an undergraduate degree, your main focus is going to be the SAT or the ACT. Easy enough. For graduate school, the landscape definitely broadens. You're looking at the GRE for most master's programs, the GMAT primarily for business schools, the LSAT if you're heading to law school, and the MCAT for medical school. And just a quick reminder, if English isn't your native language, you will also need to prove your proficiency through tests like the TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo. Let's dive into Section 3, graduate exams, specifically the GRE versus the GMAT. Notice this single massive data point. 92%. That is the percentage of business schools that now accept the GRE right alongside the GMAT. For a really long time, the underlying assumption was that if you wanted an MBA, you absolutely had to take the GMAT. Well, that is completely upended now. Top-tier schools like Harvard, Chicago Booth, and Stanford, they evaluate GRE applicants using the exact same holistic process as GMAT applicants. There's no penalty. So, how do you actually make an informed choice between the two? Well, let's just look at the straight logistics. Cost is usually a major factor for students. The GRE is generally about $220 in the US, while the GMAT can be up to $300. Additionally, the GRE has a built-in analytical writing section. The GMAT recently removed its writing section, which means some business schools might actually require you to take a completely separate GMAT writing assessment, for an extra fee, of course.
Now, both scores are valid for 5 years, but the GRE does offer a bit more program flexibility, keeping your doors open not just for business, but for law, public policy, and even PhD programs.
Section 4. Inside the Digital SAT. For our undergrads, here's how the new digital SAT compares to the old paper one you might have heard horror stories about. First off, you'll take the exam entirely on the College Board's Blue Book app. And instead of agonizing over those long, exhausting reading passages, you'll now face much shorter passages. We're talking usually just one paragraph per question. But honestly, the biggest game changer, you now have access to a built-in Desmos graphing calculator for the entire math section. Mastering this specific digital tool before test day is absolutely crucial for your time management. It allows you to solve really complex algebraic equations visually, quickly, and efficiently.
Now, the most crucial point to understand about the digital SAT is its adaptive testing format. This isn't a straightforward linear test anymore. Both the reading and writing and the math sections are split into 2 modules. And here's the catch. How you perform in Module 1 directly dictates the difficulty of Module 2. If you do really well in Module 1, you get a harder Module 2, but your potential score ceiling is a perfect 800. If you struggle in Module 1, you're automatically routed to an easier Module 2, which unfortunately permanently caps your maximum possible score right then and there. So every single early question counts. Because every early question carries so much weight now, you absolutely must master the elimination trick. Here's the golden rule you need to memorize. There's absolutely no negative marking on the SAT. An empty answer gets 0 points, and a wrong answer gets 0 points. Therefore, you should literally never leave a question blank. Use the strike-through tool right there in the Blue Book app to mentally and visually eliminate the choices you know are obviously wrong. If you can just narrow it down to 2 options, you've successfully turned a totally random guess into a 50-50 intelligent guess. And finally, Section 5, Strategies for Test Success. Let's just pause for a second. With all this talk about adaptive modules, routing, and graphing calculators, it is so easy to get lost in the tech of it all. So how do you actually master the core skills needed for these tests? Well, the answer might surprise you, and it has absolutely nothing to do with staring at a screen. Your secret weapon is a 20-minute daily newspaper reading routine. I want you to read high-quality editorials, science magazines, or just relevant, dense books for 20 minutes a day. But please, don't just passively scroll. Step 1, read and actively annotate. Identify the author's tone and physically underline their main arguments. Step 2, summarize the article out loud to yourself in just 2 minutes. And step 3, ask yourself SAT-style questions. What is the main claim here? What evidence supports it? Doing this trains your brain to process dense, academic text efficiently and quickly. Now, while you're doing that daily reading, you need to be building a vocabulary log alongside it. When you encounter a word you don't know, don't just skip over it. Write it down. But more importantly, write down the sentence where you found it, and then immediately write a completely new sentence using that word in context. Make sure you review this log weekly. It's a really simple habit, but it pushes your vocabulary from passive recognition, that feeling of, oh, I think I've seen that word before, to active, solid understanding. And that is exactly what these exams test. Let's see how all of this builds into a highly effective 4-week study plan. Week 1 is all about establishing that daily active reading routine we just talked about. Week 2, you aggressively build out that vocabulary log. By week 3, you start transitioning this knowledge into the digital realm by practicing heavily with the actual Blue Book app interface. Get used to the tools. Finally, in week 4, you integrate everything by taking full-length, strictly timed practice tests to build up your mental endurance. Consistency is your absolute best friend here. And parents, if you happen to be watching this one is entirely for you. Test anxiety is very real, and the environment at home plays a massive, massive role in that. You can help your student by building a calm, dedicated command center at home. This needs to be a distraction-free zone, specifically optimized for study. I'm talking no phones, no TV, just a quiet space that signals to their brain that it's time to focus. A supportive, serene environment is quite honestly just as critical as the study materials themselves. Well, we've covered the amazing benefits of studying in the US, decoded the big exams, and laid out a really practical study strategy. The roadmap is sitting right here in front of you, but you have to be the one to actually start the engine. So I want to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder. What is going to be your very first step toward earning your US admission passport today? Are you going to go download the Blue Book app right now, or maybe go grab a science editorial to read? The choice is entirely yours. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and I wish you the absolute best on your journey.